Hi, I'm Perry from Cheese Plus, and this is me talking about all the cheeses that are in your mystery box for week 5. We've been doing this for obviously the last 5 weeks now, and we've just been hugely honoured by the support that we've had. Obviously the weather's turned a little bit more rainy, so we're doing this inside, and this is kind of a little bit of a practice run for next weekend, which is the Big Cheese Weekender from the 8th of May to the 10th of May. The best cheese minds in the UK are coming together to do live virtual tours. As I've been saying, the British cheese industry is in a lot of trouble at the moment, and really these boxes keep on growing week by week in terms of people buying them, and it's really helping the dairies, and not only buying from me, other people are doing this campaign. So pretty much get out there, find your local deli, have a Google online, British cheese, you know, the first people that pop up, see if they've got British cheese available and order it. And all these artisan producers that I'm going to be talking about today massively appreciate it, because it's been quite incredible the support that we've seen, and I know some of my friends in the industry have seen as well. So let's talk about your box. So the first things that you would get in your box that usually come is a hallmark that I ate more British cheese. So, you know, we thought this was a nice idea that you could frame, and when someone says, what do you mean I ate more British cheese? That you could explain to them that, you know, when the virus struck, you kind of supported the British cheese industry and heritage, and I just think it's pretty amazing for a person to do, so I thought we'd show it in that way. The next piece of paper that we have is the tasting notes. So these are structured against every batch that we have, so they change every week depending on how the cheeses are and obviously what the cheeses are. So if you don't want to watch the video because you want to converse while doing it and don't want that distraction, you can utilize these to go through your cheeses. And then we've got some cheese care notes which explain how you should look after your cheese, what wines might go well with them, and then you can also wrap it in some spare cheese paper. So if you don't manage to finish your massive board in one evening, first, shame on you. Secondly, yeah, just try and you know, rewrap them to keep them good in some nice cheese paper rather than cling film or anything that you use. It's the best way to keep the cheese. So with everything like that, they come in a nice insulated box. I keep my cheeses in my car overnight to kind of simulate the same kind of delivery thing that you guys would get. So when I open these, I see how they've travelled, and we're adapting all the time, new ice packs, new stuff to actually keep it cool. So I'll move on to the first cheese, which is Sussex Camembert. Now this rind has actually got a little bit of condensation on it through the wrapping. That's why I mentioned about the thing. So the bloom, which is usually white, has kind of died down from a bit of the wetness, but that won't harm the cheese at all. That looks kind of a bit more gnarly. Now last week we had Sussex Camembert. This week we have, we had Sussex Brie. This week we have Sussex Camembert. Now they're similar cheeses in vein. As you can see, they're more oozy and things like that. But this one is kind of more, you know, kind of more cabbagey, or you know, like a little bit more vegetal. So where your last one for last week was kind of more mellow, this kind of has more impact to it. Now most of the cheeses that I get like this, I really love them to be runny, and most of my customers do as well. So I ripen them up to that point where they've got that impact and they've got this beautiful texture, just so you can, you know, pretty much sit around the table and, you know, oh, that biscuit broke, I'll try that again, and just scoop it out there, you know, and get a nice bit on your biscuit to give a go, you know. So this is cow's milk, pasteurised cheese from Allsop and Walker. Fantastic cheesemakers, and a good place to start with your cheese. So this one's still a little bit cold. I've had it out for about half an hour, so it's a bit of a colder day, so I would probably wait a bit longer so this really got kind of oozy. So a good starter cheese. The next one we move on to is kind of like one of the first of the kind that we have had on our mystery cheese boxes, and this one is called Mayfield, which once again is made by Allsop and Walker, another British artisan producer. And we've had sweeter cheeses, but not this sweet. Now this is kind of what this cheese is all about, just impact sweetness. So, you know, when you cut into this, you notice that it's kind of got that pliant texture. So if I kind of break it off there, see how it's not breaking as crumbly, and it's kind of rubbery. that's typical of Alpine, Gouda type cheeses. And I mean, as soon as you crack it open, if you smell it, I mean, it's immediately sweet, caramel, you know, those kind of notes that you get from a Gouda. And this is, you're going to get slightly less of a piece on this, purely because it's so rich and so impactful on the sweetness. We don't want you kind of getting hooked up on this and being like, God, this is amazing, I love the sweetness of it, eating all of it, and then not being able to eat all the other cheeses. So be careful on this one, because it will fill you up and will, you know, sort of hit you pretty hard, you know. So the next cheese that we have is Scythians. So this is a cheese which is made by Line of Dairies, Catherine Mead's Line of Dairies, which we had the cheese on last week, Cornish Yarg, classic. This is essentially a Cornish Yarg which hasn't been wrapped in nettle, so, and then matured for longer. So what you can see here in comparison to the Cornish Yarg, the knit of the cheese is far more tighter, and it's kind of similar in, let me just cut into this actually, kind of similar to a cheddar texture. Yeah, you might need some strong knives, but there we go. Yeah, so kind of, you know, just more, not as crumbly as a Caerphilly kind of, which I kind of liken Yarg to. And I mean, it has this beautiful rind on it as well, which is just this white, and when it's younger can kind of be pinkish, and it has a really nice aroma on the rind. The rind is kind of like mushrooms, and like just this kind of like slight mustiness, which probably isn't appealing, but I always find rinds fascinating because they kind of tell you the picture of where that cheese has lived for the past 6 to 3 years. The rind really depicts where the cheese is made, so it can be matured for 6 months to, you know, 3 years, or cheese can be matured for a lot longer than that actually, but you know, it depends, and kind of the taste and smell and aroma of the rind just kind of tells me where it's been and where it's been living for all these months or years. So it just has a really interesting rind. The flavour of this is quite tangy up front, but like really fresh and, you know, cheddary. You know, it's not a cheddar, but it's got those cheddary notes which are kind of very similar. And it's just a really nice clean cheese. So after big unctuous flavours that you have here, this one's quite nice to have that tang to cut through the palate and kind of reset you for your next 2 cheeses, which can be eaten in any order. So the next cheese we have is a traditional top British Stilton, and this is Cropwell, which is actually my favourite traditional Stilton. And this example is the best I've seen it for a very, very long time. I mean, the bluing in there is just pretty much blue-black. I mean, it's so aggressive, the bluing, and the texture of it is just so creamy, easy to cut into, you know, and it's just got that slight crumble that's there, massive like savoury, robust notes that are in there, you know, mixed with the dairy. It's just a masterpiece, you know, this is made by Cropwell Bishop Creamery, who are famous for making Beauval as well, which probably may come onto the cheese board soon enough, which is like a gorgonzola style, but really nice cheese, great blue. And then the last cheese that we have is a Caerphilly style, which is made by Westcombe Dairy, based in Somerset. And the story of Caerphilly, the Chris Ducketts used to make this Caerphilly, which was a famous cheesemaker, knew Tom and the Westcombe family really well. And he fell ill, and they didn't want to see the cheese die out, like most of you do, supporting British cheese. And they took on the recipe and the production of this. And, you know, I've tried a lot of Caerphillys in my time, but this I just really like. It's just so clean and light and grassy and just so, you know, I suppose the French call it terroir. It's like the milk and just so, like, just natural, just kind of untouched cheese. And kind of Tom, when he matures this, they've got, as you come into the farm, they've got like this house which you know, kind of lovely farmhouse typical. They've got their caves for their cheddar, which is in the back of the farm, built into a mound. And then their kind of final stop is this kind of room which is underneath the house that that the family live in. And underneath this house is a small little kind of like wine cellar, and you walk in and there's this like immediate beautiful kind of smell which is kind of earthy, real rustic kind of there. And the rind on this shows that it's kind of like stony in colour, and the smell of this is just so mushroomy and just earthy. And I love this cheese purely because I was amazed going into the cellar. There's a natural spring that runs under the house. They utilise that to keep the humidity in the building, in the room. And it's just got this smell that you only can get there. And the rind smells exactly like that room. And I just find that incredible that you can get the terroir and know it, just like I was explaining about the other cheeses, how it is. But these are like the traditional cheeses, territorial, which we know and love, and it's got a huge crumbly texture and just a beautiful earthy, grassy kind of lemony vibe to it, and it's just a real nice treat. So they're all our cheeses for the mystery cheese box this week. I think there's some challenging elements to this. We've got some stronger flavours than usual, but I think they complement each other really well. You may notice that we don't have a goat this week, and that's because kind of from most goats that I have that are good at the moment, they've got this like lemony kind of edge to it, and we've succeeded the tang and the lemony edge through the Ducats Caerphilly and the Stythians. So I've kind of dropped the goat this week, but they may come back next week depending on what's really good. So that's your board for this week. Once again, thanks for supporting. I've really loved hearing all your messages. I'm pretty much on this all the time because I just love hearing from people who are taking pictures, sending it to me. You know, we had someone do a cheese and wine night with Will Lyons from, I think he's from the Telegraph, who's a great wine expert, and they did this Zoom kind of thing with our cheese, which was just awesome. I think even last week a dog tried some of our cheese, liked it obviously, but I suppose he would like anything. And yeah, please just go on our social media, email me, you know, perry@cheese-plus.co.uk with any questions that you have. And yeah, next week is going to be really special, slightly changing the schedule because I'll be doing it live on the Saturday for 1 hour. So that's on Saturday the 9th, which will be at 5 o'clock, and I'll be live recording for an hour, going through all the cheeses. I've sent surveys out on what your most favourite cheeses have been over the last 5 weeks. We'll reveal them on the night, and you have them in your box if you order the box online at cheese-plus.co.uk. And we can unwrap them together, enjoy them together. You can ask me any questions that you want, be that about cheese, be that about my industry, be that about, you know, some interesting stories I have about cheesemakers. Whatever the questions, I'll try and answer them and try and do the best that I can. As I was saying, Patrick McWigan writes for the Telegraph, I believe, food journalist, massive cheese lover, is going to be doing a talk then, and you know, he knows just as much about cheese as I do. You've got Salaman Sam, who is been massive actually in this Eat More British Cheese kind of thing, doing a few more things I think with his kids as well. So yeah, check him out. Hero at Paxton's is doing a talk on territorial style cheeses. And oh, I mean, there's so many more I forget to mention, but just go Google search British Cheese Weekender. It will come up with a full schedule, how to get involved, how to support the British cheese industry, and I'm sure it's going to be a really nice couple of days and something to do while we're all in lockdown. So please do that. Any questions, contact any of us and we'll point you in the right direction. Thank you for buying my cheese box, and I'll catch you next time.